kind of indifferent start, and we're kind of like, well, is this a Craig Peacock we've seen lead be a British Player of the Year in the EIHL? And once he kind of gets shifted to centre, he's kind of caught fire like a lot of the other forwards have, and started racking up the points and the goals. So I'm delighted for him as well, because it's we've waited a long time to have a sort of true premium Brit, if you like, in the squad. So to see him actually start performing at the level we know he's capable of, it's very encouraging, and it's a good time to start performing as well, as we've been saying, that the playoffs are very soon upon us.
Well, what do you think? We've got another, 1, 2, 3, 4 minimum of 4 games, and possibly 5. Wouldn't count the third, fourth playoff. We've possibly got at least minimum of 4, another possibly 5, maybe even 6 games. And he's right on course to outscore Ben Davis for the season, with the season that Ben Davis had last year, which was his best. That was Ben Davis's best season at the Clan. So I know people maybe thought he'd be more of a goal scorer, but he's settling into a new system and a new team. I think it'll be interesting to see if he stays next year, exactly how he performs next year, and I think that'll be the year to judge him, Stephen.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you can't compare him to Ben Davies, because
you can't. I'm only comparing the production.
It's everyone else though. You know, they were saying, "Oh, we need Ben Davies back. We need Ben Davies back," but they're not like the same type of player at all. No. You're not going to put Craig Peacock on your penalty kill or do anything like that you were doing with Ben Davies, you know. And see his assist for I think it was Rosehill's goal last night.
Yeah.
That was absolutely fantastic. He just took the puck and made the Coventry defence look stupid, and Rosehill was just there on the doorstep to hit it in. So, you know, he's coming into a bit of form. You know, everybody were saying, we'd like some more goals out of him, and he'd say that himself. You know, I'm sure he's not overly happy with the way things started out for him this season, but you know, you can only go with how you end, and he's ending with quite a bang. So if he comes back next season, hopefully he can pick up where he's left off.
Well, he's supposed to have signed a 2-year deal. Well, we all know what that means in the Elite League, don't we? So
yeah,
we'll
definitely.
See. I certainly a player that'd be one of the first in my list to have back as a top 6 Brit. Definitely not been a problem for me this season at all. Jennifer, any of that I asked you about him yet, have I?
Well, I think his season did kind of start quite slowly, but I think since he's been moved to centre and he's got a lot more ice, I mean, he's young, he's energetic, and he's getting a lot more space to move about. That's when we're actually starting to see what he can actually do. And as Stephen said, that assist that he got was just... It was just absolutely beautiful to watch. So, no, definitely since he's moved to centre, rather, I think in the wing he's perhaps a little bit stifled too much. So since we've seen him moving around a lot better, you can kind of see what he brings to the team.
Yep. So, you know, at 4-2 down, as I said, my worry was we're going into Edinburgh weekend who don't have anything to play for on a 1-1-6 run. That win to me has brought us back to life, but how do you keep that? How do you keep that going, Raymond? We've got 2 games against Edinburgh, who are the only team in the league virtually who've got nothing to play for anymore. There's maybe Abu, Cardiff, Nottingham, and Fife places are pretty much the ones that are settled, but they've got nothing to play for. We can't control our destiny. We could still be third seed, depending. We're going to talk about the playoff seedings in the next segment of the programme, but basically, we can't control our seeding at the moment, so we in Edinburgh have nothing to go for. How do you maintain for 2 games, another weekend, that competitive edge? Because even Ryan said it, it's difficult mentally when you're a player, when you've got something you've really got to aim at, like Coventry were trying to keep their playoff hopes alive by getting the win. It's not that you're saying the players aren't playing 100%, but it's just not the same, is it? So how do you keep that going? It's impossible. I don't know how we're going to keep it going over the weekend.
It is very difficult, and well, one of the things I said before last night's game was I thought it was so important that we win this one, because unless the guys fancy another 14 hours in a bus going down to Coventry again, then it was vital that we won that game, and thankfully we did, and that's substantially reduced the chances that we would play the Blaze should they qualify. But yeah, going forward to the Edinburgh games, well, Edinburgh have shown us before when they've nothing to play for, they can still spring a surprise. So depending on what happens with Rosehill, which we'll talk about later, I'm sure, I would say one of my motivations would be, well, Ryan Finnerty say, well, guys, we've got a spare import here, so if you don't want to be the guy sitting out for the first playoff game, we need to keep up a certain level here, a certain intensity. And I know it's going to be in the back of players' minds when they're going for a check or they're sprinting. Do I bust my gut for this puck here, or do I go in for this hit, or do I block this shot? But it's a dilemma. It's a dilemma players from all teams face, and yeah, it's a difficult one. And I'd like to see us go in with a bit more momentum, get a few wins on the board in the trot, just to get that momentum going. But it's going to be very difficult.
We want to be scoring goals for fun over the next weekend. We've got 2 games to play against Edinburgh. You would usually go around the doors, but we want 4 points. You want to go out in a winning streak, don't you? The big thing for me, we've got, you mentioned it there, Raymond. It's probably the only thing we've got left to talk about over the weekend is this headbutting incident with J. Rosehill. Now the highlights have come out tonight. We've had, I don't know if Raymond, you're kind of just in for you. Have you had a chance to see it yet?
I've seen the highlights in that. Yeah.
I don't know. It's weak. There is a movement, but it barely makes contact, if it makes contact at all. You can just imagine other fans of other teams jumping up and down saying, but he tried to. There's nothing in it. It shouldn't be getting in for that. It should be getting reduced. The penalty should be getting reduced. It shouldn't even have been probably called. If anything, you could maybe call roughing on both of them. And I think even the commentators made that comment at the time. There's not a lot in it. Jennifer, come to you first. What was your reading of that?
I watched it with my glasses on, I watched it with my glasses off, and I couldn't see any headbutt at all. It's just 2 guys tussling for the puck, pushing and shoving, and then it looks as though Rosehill trips towards the end. At no point can I see any sort of headbutt or attempted headbutt. Should there be another camera angle that that disproves that, then do you know what I mean, I'm all for seeing it. But I've looked at it, watched the game, couldn't see it. I looked at it and couldn't see the game. I think the fact Rosehill reacted the way that he did, obviously once he'd been told what he'd been called for, I think it was pretty obvious that it was a bullshit call. If he had intentionally ever done anything like that, I'm sure he's big enough to man up and say, do you know what, I did. And I certainly think in this case that he didn't. That was some temper tantrum he threw in that box.
The thing is, we've watched him all year. He's not really, and it's surprising. I mean, when he's got a reputation, and when we first signed him, I thought he was going to be a dirty player. If you like, maybe dirty. I like hard nosed, whatever you want to call it. I thought he was going to be a more chippy player, maybe would be the best word. But it's not really been that way for him, Stephen, is it?
No, not at all. And obviously, I watched him when he played for Toronto, and he was the guy who was sent in by the coach just to thump someone every now and then when he did ice. So it was refreshing to see him not play like that, and his contribution to the team, not in terms of points, but in terms of making space and letting other guys move about, is been vital this season for some of our more skilled players to try and get points. But it's there's not much in it at all, if anything. And the way you can tell that there's not much in it is because our pal Stephen Dow hasn't been called for him to be deported or anything yet. So
lethal injection.
He's always the first one to shout and bawl about these things. So and to be fair to him, not many fans for any teams have really said anything about it either.
Well, there has been a couple of Coventry fans, but then you would expect that. But I mean, what point I was trying to make was he doesn't do a lot of cheap shotting, does he? He's pretty straight-laced the way he plays, so to find, even when they said, last night he's been sent to penalty box for a head, but you're kind of thinking, that's not really the J. Rosehill we've been watching all year.
But, every player's prone to a red mist incident,
that's true. That's true.
But looking at it, it really doesn't look like that was one, it's, there was minimal contact. You can tell by, I think it was Jordan Petrus, wasn't it? You can tell by his reaction that there was no malicious headbutt. He stood there looking at the guy. That's not how you react when you're headbutted, and it's just one of those ones. And the wonder adopts means that anything can happen. It's like getting let off or like getting the ban reduced to. It was a match penalty, so he's already got an automatic 1-game ban. I can see that being reduced, or I can see like 6 being added on. It's the wheel of
the magic of
unpredictability.
The Wheel of Fortune.
Exactly. So we'll need to see how it goes tomorrow or Wednesday or whenever they make their announcement.
And Raymond, you're the only person I haven't asked you what your opinion was when you get the chance to look at it.
My initial reaction to it was extremely soft, and it was kind of ignited by the struggle the two players were having, and I think Rosehill's got a case for saying his stick was being held for quite a considerable amount of time. I suppose when you look at it a couple of times, it kind of half makes the motion a little bit, and I don't know if it's possibly within the rules that just making the motion is enough, but and like Stephen was saying, the sort of randomness adopts. It's, you don't know what's going to happen when they do convene and make their decision. But I don't think you can just say the match penalty stands and it's a 1-game ban. I don't think you can let it stand as a headbutting major like that with no further action. So I think he either kind of gets the extra games topped up into it, or I think the match penalty gets revoked completely.
I mean, there's definitely a head movement. There's no doubt about that. It's very slight and it makes no contact. In fact, I don't think it even goes remotely close to making contact. And in the scheme of things and the proximity of things, there's the dog making an appearance. She can stay in. She doesn't get edited out. So, yeah, I totally agree with you, Raymond. I just don't. I'm not saying it's whiter than white and you've never done anything wrong, but I don't know the exact wording of the rule, and I don't know if it's enough of a gesture in terms of his movement, of his head, that you can call it a headbutt. I just don't know. Very strange.
Didn't this happen with Chris Frank a few years ago when he was with us?
His was much more pronounced, though. I mean,
that was an actual
indefensible. Yeah. I don't think you could. And nobody tried to defend it. And we certainly. I mean, everybody said, purple tinted specs, your Purple Army podcast. We thought way back at the start of the season, Craig Peacock was lucky to get away with his swinging the stick and what he got for that. But we're not here to throw players under the bus either. But we tried to give an honest opinion, and there's a few times that we thought we've maybe been lucky and get away with a few. This one is definitely one where I think it's been a bit. The referee's got to deal with what he sees at the time. From his angle, you don't know exactly what he's seen, although there's suggestions. I think, Jennifer, it was a linesman that called it. So you don't know what between them they've exactly seen, and it could have looked a lot worse from a different angle. The angle you see it on in the highlights is quite an easy one, slowed down to say, well, there's not a lot in that. But you can't fault the referees for thinking there might be more. But again, without, as Raymond says, without the wording of the rule exactly, it's difficult to tell if it's enough. That slight head movement's enough to actually constitute a breaking of the rules. But then, I don't know. It's a tricky one. I would be very surprised if his penalty isn't reduced and he's playing on Saturday night. That's the bottom line for me, though. Big thing as well. We're talking about, Damon, I think you mentioned it too, about you've got an extra import. Well, will we have an extra import? How has there been an update? I certainly haven't seen one on Hammond, so I don't know if he's going to be back. It was interesting to note that when the players were talking about it, the Q&A, for my man said that they reckoned it was accidental and there was no malice. And we did say last week the only person that would know whether it was or not would be Zach himself. Although again, Zach's more prone to maybe more clumsy than malicious, I think it's fair to say, Stephen. But it was interesting to note the players not showing any ill will towards him. But there's no doubt, Raymond, for us to have any chance getting through to the playoff, and if we get to the playoff finals, we need to have Mike Hammond back fit for us to have any chance, don't we?
Yeah, I mean, I thought when he hobbled off the ice, I thought, is that our only major playoff chance, just hobbled off with him? And thankfully it sounds like it's not as bad as it looked, but it's still kind of unclear yet if he's going to make it. So I think watching the replay of the incident again, it for me it just looks worse the more I watch it. But if the guys say that it was a legitimate hockey play and there was no real ill will towards it, well then I defer to their experience on that. But yeah, Hammond's been such a key component of our team of late, and he's been in such great form. And when big skill players like that are injured in that kind of manner, it's just really kind of sad and upsetting to see, because he's done nothing to deserve any